So in this video, I'm going to go over the new chapter that's on the PTB at the minute, which is the ring chapter. I'm just going to go over everything that's in this PTB, which I want to say is kind of like the Pinhead chapter, where there's literally nothing to talk about here other than the actual, new killer and stuff. This is another chapter where there's no changes here. There's no perk changes. There's no map changes. There's no new map. There's no killer changes. There's no nothing. There's no blanket changes. There's literally nothing except for just the new killer, the new survivor, and the perks. Um, there's not much to say about the perks. They all seem fine. The killer perks are pretty meh. I don't see any of them being used. Um, you know, as usual. I mean, uh, but the survivor perks also seem that way. Also as usual, but they're just like they're not bad, but they're not gonna really replace any of them, except for the boon. Um, this is going to be our next problematic boon. Okay, so this boon increases your movement speed by 2% when you're within the radius and it lingers for 4 seconds after it's destroyed. This this is annoying. I don't know if behavior said this, but you never mess with survivors' movement speed. That's one of the things that you never mess with, at least unless it's something like hope, or blood pact, which is very strict conditions. This is a boon which can be, up the entire game. You're going to see people run this. Take a map like Midwich. If you put a boon on the upstairs of either side of the map, you've got nearly half the map, where survivors now move 2% faster. Now 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's definitely noticeable. Think about any hit you've got on a survivor where they just about made it to the window but you still hit them. They just about made it to the pallet but you still hit them. You know, anything like that where you just about hit them, which happens a lot. 2% movement speed would have taken away that hit from you. Yeah, and you would have been able to get them. And that's just the way, that's just the way it is. But it's not something that's immediately noticeable. And you won't notice this in, lower ranks and stuff like that. You're not gonna see that all that much. But in the higher ranks, against really good survivors, they'll start using that, and killers like Trapper, killers like early game Oni are going to suffer even more now because downing someone, and I'll get to the new killer actually, downing someone without an either power is already hard enough. And now downing someone without an anti-lit power who's now moving 2% faster is going to be near impossible. But enough about that, I'll get to the new killer. Straight away, I can tell you that this killer is very, very weak. These days, you need an anti-lit power. It's why everyone's playing Blight, it's why everyone's playing Nurse, it's why everyone used to play Old Spirit, it's why I used to play Old Deathsinger, it's why people play Executioner. You can actually down survivors, with your ability. It's why killers like Myers, Pig, Trapper, Legion are all very weak killers, because their ability doesn't help them in the chase, or just minimally helps them in the chase. You can't actually down survivors, and that's the case with this killer. Her ability is to teleport to TVs, which you can come out of, and anyone near it gains like a condemned token basically, and once they get 7, you can Mori them when they're on the ground. This whole Mori thing never happens. From what I've seen, if the survivors are actually trying to not have it happen to them, it never happens. This isn't like Pyramid Head's Final Judgment where they're tormented and then you can just, easily do it when they're dead on hook. Like, I'm going to be honest, like, if this is like a worse version of Chain Hunt, it's basically entirely up to the survivors. But you can still get a Chain Hunt to happen. And what I mean by that is, in the case of Pinhead, if the survivors know what they're doing, realistically, you shouldn't really get a chain hunt going, unless you get lucky and find the box, or you really prioritize getting a chain hunt, which might cause you to lose in the game. But as long as someone every 90 seconds literally just runs over and picks up the box, that completely shuts down your chain hunt. It's just sort of the same way with this girl, except even easier. For you to get condemned, it's just you have to do so much. The killer has to teleport to you either 7 times, or you have to take the videotape 7 times. But if you take the videotape and put it into the TV, that's required, it takes off a huge chunk of that. I think it's like 3 or 4 points. So realistically, if you've even if you take any effort at all to not be fully condemned, you won't be condemned. It's very easy to just not get condemned. And then, well, once we look at that, which is, very easy for survivors to counter that aspect of the power, what else does she have left? She has the ability to demanifest, become undetectable, and teleport to the TVs, which are in predetermined locations and might be in unfavorable spots. Might not be near a generator, might not be near an exit gate that you might want to go to, near a hook you might want to go to. It's completely random, and that just seems kind of useless. Granted, yeah, it could have good mobility, but who cares? Who cares if you can teleport to a TV that's across the map and come out and be able to go around the map like that? You're not downing anyone. And your manifestation ability where you become undetectable is like a shitty version of Wraith. Because it's kind of like old Wraith, where you go undetectable. You're not even fully invisible, by the way. You just sort of phase in and out like old Freddy. And once you do that, you have to re-manifest again to even hit them, which takes about 2 seconds, and you gain a pitiful speed boost when you come out of it. It's like literally half a second of like slightly increased movement speed. It's really bad, almost unnoticeable. And that's her power. That's literally it. So when we look at it as a whole, it's very easy to counter the condemned thing to the point where it's going to be like getting a reverse bear trap kill with the pig. It's only going to happen maybe once every 10 games if you try it. And then we got her manifestation ability, which is like a shit version of Wraith. It's like a Wraith, except they can see you, and you don't have the mobility, and an even shittier post uncloak lunge. So this killer has literally nothing going for her. She's literally probably one of the most powerless killers in the game. And that's not even in terms of strength. I mean, like, genuinely powerless, as in she doesn't have a power. Like, what does her power do? I don't see any practical use at all for her power. And I don't know how I'd change her, because what could you change? The only thing I could maybe see doing is making it so the condemn thing is a lot more interactive. Make it so it's a lot easier to be condemned, but there's more things that the survivor can do to get rid of the condemned status. So it's like a constant battle between the killer and the survivor to try and get them condemned. But once you're condemned, you should be able to like decondemn yourself. And then that might create like an interesting dynamic where they might have to choose, gens or, getting videotapes and stuff, because, being condemned is a much bigger threat. And if you're not careful, it actually will, you will be condemned very easily. And then another thing is maybe make the post manifestation state speed boost, I guess you could call it. Make that a lot bigger, like Wraith sized speed boost, or even bigger, I'd say, because she really does need it. She needs something, because at the minute this killer literally has nothing, and really she just exemplifies the whole problem with Dead by Daylight at the minute, which is it's not designed for the killer to not have an anti-loot power. It just isn't anymore. And they've completely snookered themselves, because they've just proved to everyone and themselves that they can create a killer without an anti-loot power now. People said that the devs were running out of ideas, but they weren't. They just couldn't use new ideas, and this is a new idea, which doesn't include an anti-loot power, and look how it turned out. You can't play Dead by Daylight without the ability to down survivors. And unfortunately, nowadays, you need some sort of anti-loot power to do that. And if a killer doesn't have one, they're just going to be a weak killer. So I don't know what they're going to do with her, but they need to do something. If she releases even somewhat like she is right now, she will be so bad. Contender for the worst killer in the game. I don't know about the worst killer in the game, but absolutely a contender. I wouldn't argue if you said she was the worst killer in the game. And she does remind me a lot of the pig. Where the whole condemn thing is sort of like the reverse bear trap, where, 99% of the time they're not going to die to it. And her ambush is sort of just as useless as her manifestation and demanifestation. But yeah, she needs huge buffs. Like huge buffs. Like actually, like she borderline needs like a mini rework. But I think maybe a huge post demanifestation lunge and an update to the condemned status would definitely help, making it a lot easier to get someone condemned, but making it so survivors can take more measures against being condemned, but that would also waste their time. So they're not sitting in chains. Maybe do something like that. But as for now, I think she's very weak, and if she releases the way she is, no one will play her at all. So that's my thoughts. A bit negative, but things can change, and I think she's got a wee bit of potential. We've already established what it takes to be a top tier killer in this game, and that's high on demand mobility like Blight or maybe like Nurse, and really good anti loop like Old Death Singer or Current Nurse. She doesn't have either.